It's a space-based missile defense system, but if the United States becomes impenetrable to missile attack, what does this mean for global peace and stability? I'm Muddy John on that, and today's Newsmaker is President Trump's Golden Dome. Promising to protect the entire continental U.S. from ballistic, cruise, and even hypersonic missiles, this system could reshape the future of warfare, diplomacy, and space. But critics warn it may backfire, trigger a new arms race, and militarize Earth's orbit. Is it visionary leadership or strategic miscalculation? We'll debate the technology, the threats, as well as the geopolitical implications with our guests in just a bit. But first, here's a closer look.
It's called the Golden Dome, a potential state-of-the-art space protection system for the United States. Last week, President Donald Trump unveiled the $175 billion design for the Golden Dome missile defense shield. It's a system that will use hundreds of satellites and multiple weapons to stop any missiles bound for the US, whether they are launched from the other side of the world or even from space. A far more advanced version of the US-designed Iron Dome used in Israel. The so-called Golden Dome would be able to knock down hypersonic, ballistic, and advanced cruise missiles, which US main rivals China, North Korea, and Russia have in their arsenals.
This is very important for the success and even survival of our country. It's a pretty evil world out there, so this is something that goes a long way toward the survival of this great country.
Trump says the system will be operational before his term ends in 2029. He described it as the best system in the world and said Canada wants to join. Its Prime Minister Mark Carney admitted that he and his security officials have discussed the plan.
Is it a good idea for Canada? Yes, it's a good idea to have protections for Canadians. Apart from missiles, and because there are now, at this moment, from now on, there are threats. It's North Korea, Russia, and perhaps China in the future. There are real threats for Canada.
Russia said the Golden Dome is a US sovereign matter, but added that the plan could force a resumption of nuclear arms control agreements between the two sides. Meanwhile, China raised serious concerns about the plan and called on the US to abandon it.
The United States puts its own interests first and is obsessed with seeking its own absolute security, which violates the principle that no country's security should come at the expense of others. This undermines global strategic balance and stability.
Beijing also added that the Golden Dome could fuel an arms race and increase the risk of space becoming a battlefield. Many analysts also agree that the US plan is a major shift toward the weaponization of outer space.
Thinking about space as a domain that has a pretty core security purpose is something of a sea change. So traditionally we've used space for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities, and now we're actually talking about assets that will be, living inside of space and performing a core, defensive purpose.
The budget is another sticking point. The Congressional Office puts the cost at over $542 billion just for the space systems alone, a price tag that is far higher than the one Trump gave. Some scientists are even questioning the technical possibility of such a massive shield. It is similar to an initiative called Star Wars, presented by Ronald Reagan 40 years ago. Back then, it sounded just like science fiction. Yet Trump is now trying to turn more of it into a reality. And if it ever happens, the question has to be asked: will it lead to a chain of future events that could be another threat to humankind?
All right, to discuss more on this, let's go straight to our panel. Joining me now to debate are from Beijing, Senior Fellow over at the Tahe Institute, Einar Tenjin, and from Moscow, political commentator Vladimir Sotnikov. And joining us from Washington, D.C., professor at the National Defense University, David DeRoche. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us here on the Newsmaker. David, let me begin with you to help me better understand this. I mean, from a strategic military standpoint, is the focus on basing this defense system on space, a space-based defense system, the most efficient way to respond to a threat posed by this new generation weapons of hypersonic missiles?
Well, if you can make it work, it would be.
Okay.
And the reason is that you would be probably using some sort of directed energy weapon, like a laser, and you would be engaging the weapon while it was in the atmosphere, so before any kind of multiple entry warheads separate, and before it enters the atmosphere and is able to actually maneuver, it'd be on a predictable course. So the physics say it would be more effective. The issue, of course, is how do you maintain that amount of energy on a space-based platform?
Okay, fair enough. Vladimir, let me bring you in the conversation. When you look at the last 70, 80 years, I mean, Russia has historically been sensitive, highly sensitive to perceived shifts in the strategic balance. How might Moscow interpret this initiative that's been pursued by the United States?
Good afternoon again, and thank you very much for inviting me into your discussion. I think that we can say just briefly that that could be a great challenge for Russia. And Russia may perceive these new developments in the new technology developments in the United States as a great challenge to its security. So I think that what could be the possible response of Russia to these developments? This could be the main attention attention would be given to the such technologies like very sophisticated, highly sophisticated hypersonic missiles. And from one side, from another side, probably the new generation of nuclear weapons, and including the space weapons using the satellite which Russia can easily put into orbit with the help of space launches, which Russia still has at great quantity. So I think that overall is saying that that could be a great challenge, and Russia won't be just leave it aside and looking desperately what's going on in American new strategy.
Okay, Einar, you heard Vladimir say that Russia is it's going to be a big challenge for Russia. How is Beijing likely to interpret the Golden Dome project? I mean, is it looking at this? Okay, it's a defensive shield, or on the flip side, it's a strategic threat. I mean, and then let me also follow up by asking, what sort of countermeasures would China prioritize?
All right. So let's put this in perspective.
Okay.
Let's say that the Golden Dome works perfectly, and in a nuclear scenario, the U.S. is able to fire off nuclear bombs and destroy all of China, Russia, whoever they don't like. Well, the nuclear fallout would literally kill the United States. So I don't know how you assure a victory in this. It does upset the current status quo. Something like this, if it worked, and I completely agree with David, the technology doesn't exist. You can spend 150 or 145 billion dollars on it, but that doesn't mean that you have the means to do it, to get it done. And we're talking about trillions of dollars that would be spent on this program. And then there are issues about how you cover Alaska and also Hawaii, Guam, other outside, territories,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's Micronesia or American Samoa. So, I mean, it's not practical. So I think from Beijing's point of view, they're looking at this and they see this as perhaps just another way of Donald Trump trying to move the conversation away from his failures on the economic side.
Okay, David, let me come back to you. I mean, given your background in both special operations as well as defense policy, break this down for me a little more in terms of the president's project. I mean, is it a viable extension of U.S. homeland defense? Or, in another way of putting it, politely perhaps, is it an overreach?
Well, we won't be able to say definitively until after it's done. If you look at some of the existing missile intercept programs, particularly the naval Aegis system, which is able to intercept missiles in the exoatmosphere, and THAAD, which has a more limited but ability to do it, that was thought to be impossible back when Ronald Reagan said that we were going to do this. So I think what we're going to see here is basically a system of systems. So there'll probably be an integrated command and control network that will combine systems like THAAD, like Aegis. We have ground-based interceptors in both Alaska and California that are really only effective against a North Korean threat, together with some new stuff. And I think that will be space-based and directed energy. That's the only way I see that going. There'll be probably limited progress on the space-based weapon, but any progress is sufficient to serve as a deterrent against some sort of limited strike, some sort of decapitation strike. And then ultimately, when you want to talk about the deterrent against a general nuclear exchange, I think it's back to the classic Cold War offensive capability, which the United States is allowed to wither, but it's still significant.
I know that you're agreeing with David on a lot of points here, and this project may be years down the line. But I mean, essentially what the United States is trying to do here is position itself as untouchable, at least for the continental part. I mean, but we're always going to see China react to something. I mean, do you feel that this could lead China to pivot towards a more asymmetric warfare, or even AI-enabled deterrence strategies in the future?
Well, that's the issue and it's being fought within the corridors of power of the United States. If you start looking at this kind of Star Wars 2 idea, first off, it's an idea, but start looking at who's going to benefit. Guess what? Elon Musk, and also Palantir. Big backer of J.D. Vance. This seems to be more about money grabbing than it does about reality. David has not said that any of these technologies, except THAAD and the Aegis system, they do exist to cover the United States. I'd love to hear his estimate of what that would cost in order to do that. But as I said, this is really just Donald Trump trying to throw something into the air so that his failures on the economic policy front aren't examined. This is classic. Don't tell one lie, tell 40. If something's failing, double down on it and then go after it. And we're seeing that with Europe, threatened 50% tariffs. Don't separate these issues.
Okay.
That's the most important thing I can tell you.
Okay. I mean, but let's try to keep our conversation on the Golden Dome for the moment. Vladimir, let me ask you in terms of what a possible Russian response. I mean, are we going to see sort of maybe an acceleration from the Russian side in terms of developing anti-satellite or even space denial technologies, you feel?
Yes, as I have already said, that Russia will accelerate, will speed up its newly developments of the sophisticated modern weapons. And you are right in saying that and in suggesting that most probably Russia will speed up the program of satellite weapons, because Russia has a great capacity actually for placing as many satellites as it wants into the orbit, and to equip them with sophisticated weapons like probably infrared weapons, laser weapons. So there are some developments in this regard are going on here in Russia. And also Russia will be giving attention to conventional weapons like the brand new hypersonic missiles, because as David said, and I agree with him, that that's Golden Dome system is mainly for nuclear nuclear exchanges, the nuclear strike exchanges for nuclear war. So, but we shouldn't forget that also during this nuclear war, there could be used some conventional weapons which could be very much high penetrating if the adversary is using nuclear weapons. So I think that absolutely you are right that Russia would develop more new systems based on satellites and other means of equipment.
Okay. David, you heard what Vladimir said, and just before Vladimir, what Einar said. I mean, how would you assess the risk of adversaries targeting this system itself, whether it's cyber warfare, anti-satellite weapons, or even tactics that deal with deception?
Yeah. Well, both Russia and China have tested anti-satellite weapons in space. That's why I think about 80% of the space junk in the usable orbits are from the Russian and the Chinese anti-satellite tests. So that's a very real possibility. And it's much easier to destroy a satellite than it is to put one into space. All you have to do is shoot a rocket up full of nuts and bolts. So that's one consideration. I think we'll probably be looking at unconventional orbits in order to evade that. But that's one possibility. The other possibility is, quite frankly, it's much easier to launch missiles than to intercept them. So, if you want to overwhelm any defensive system, you can do it with numbers, and that applies to forts, like Roman forts. I think that the issue here is not so much invulnerability against a general nuclear exchange. That remains unthinkable. And the United States has never really been serious, at least in my lifetime, about fighting and winning a nuclear exchange. It's viewed as unthinkable, as Einar pointed out, that just the damage, even if you destroy your enemy completely, just the radiation will come back and get you. And the United States has not made a new nuclear weapon since 1968, a new nuclear warhead. We repurposed the ones from 1968. The question is more, can you deter rogue actors? Missile technology is proliferating. Iran has a viable missile regime. So deterring rogue actors is one scenario. The second scenario is deterring a possible decapitation strike. I think that all air defense is point defense. They call things a dome. They think it's like the Simpsons movie where a glass dome seals off a city. But basically, you're defending against points, and those points would be Washington, D.C., Omaha, Nebraska, and a few retaliatory capabilities. And I think that is potentially viable, but there are significant engineering challenges, particularly with a space-based defense.
How much do you think that President Trump was thinking about what you just mentioned in terms of rogue actors when he was when he showcased this?
I think he's thinking about it all the time. I mean, when you look at what is consuming Trump in both agendas, he had the failed summit with North Korea, and that I think still burns because that's the one time where, his thing has always been, I'm the master of the art of the deal. Get me in the room with the guy, we'll get a deal, and he didn't. And then, of course, we have the ongoing mishigas with Iran. And the dispatch of a significant naval task force to deal with a third-tier threat, the Houthis, Iranian proxies launching attacks against civilian ships with ballistic missiles. And it's important to note the Houthis are the first group in history to hit a ship with a ballistic missile. It was a civilian ship, but still it was a ship. So I think that he is very aware that this technology is rapidly proliferating, even to non-state actors, and keeping a Cold War mindset where you rely on mutually assured destruction with the Soviet Union, because it was built for the Soviet Union, not Russia, and leaving yourself vulnerable to missiles from other actors when they're proliferating is just irresponsible.
Okay, I mean, Vladimir, I have to turn to you after what David said. I mean, given your nuclear non-proliferation background, how would Golden Dome impact arms control treaties in nuclear doctrines, particularly the principle of mutually assured destruction?
Yeah, Matt, yeah, Well, actually, no. These principles are not new. They've been circulating ever since the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and then missile technology regime were introduced into the international relations. So I think that if the Golden Dome system will be operable and will be put into the action. I mean, not just launching rockets, but put into the action, just being on the duty. I think that there should be some amendments given to the mutually assured destruction and principle and the principles of nuclear non-proliferation. On the other hand, as David said, this Golden Dome, and I agree with that, could be a good system to deter the adversaries like non-state groups and other terrorist organizations of using missile technology and using ballistic missiles. Who knows if these adversaries, possible adversaries, I mean these non-state actors, could also put a nuclear warhead on the missile which they will be having. So that could be a good system against these rogue states and rogue non-state actors. So I think that this is also gives the possibility to imply the new principles in the non-proliferation and of nuclear weapons and missile technology regime proliferation as well.
Okay, I know you're not agreeing with Vladimir all that much.
Well, I'm not agreeing with either one of them. I mean, this idea that this is some sort of rational conversation is nonsense. It's based on, on technology that does not exist. And then Vladimir is going on about how you're going to deter non-state actors. Other than the Houthis, I don't really know many non-state actors who are actually have ballistic missiles. Where we are facing a situation where, yes, you can have non-state actors, but they don't have to use a ballistic missile. It's more likely that they use a fishing boat or smuggle in parts and blow it up in some designated location. So this idea that everyone's going to attack the United States or somewhere else using ballistic missiles is kind of nonsense. The fact is, we have a situation where the U.S. is trying to say that they have some invulnerability based on what happened in Israel. But as we have seen, the Iron Dome is not completely safe. And with technology going forward, hypersonic missiles, etc., it's unlikely until you have a particle beam that can literally, as David said, intercept missiles just shortly after launch. You really don't have a defensive capability. So I really see this as just a bunch of nonsense, and these trying to give it credence.
I
by
understand your point, Einar. You're
sense.
saying that this technology doesn't exist. I hear you. I see your point. But do you feel or do you believe that even the pursuit of this technology by the United States, there is any realistic framework, diplomatic framework left to prevent the militarizations of certain niches? I mean, especially in space.
Well, not under Donald Trump. He doesn't recognize anything. He's basically a rogue state actor. He breaks treaties. He disregards international institutions. He doesn't care about international law. So under Donald Trump, absolutely. He will just go and do whatever he wants. There has been an unwritten convention that we will not weaponize space. There have been signatories to that, but that's not going to stop Donald Trump.
Okay, David, let me ask you. I know we're saying not under Donald Trump. I mean, do you feel that deploying such a system, it's going to embolden future U.S. administrations to adopt more aggressive foreign policies, assuming immunity from retaliation?
Well, again, there's no such thing as immunity from air defense. So all air defense is point air defense. And the Golden Dome, if it is successful, probably will not protect all of the United States from an attack. So the idea of a nuclear attack still remains somewhat unthinkable. It's sort of here there be dragons. I don't think that there's any person seriously advocating as a policy that we advance to an area that we assume invulnerability in launching nuclear strikes. It's more to prevent, and you can search on YouTube, there are both Iranian and North Korean videos that show a missile attack on the United States, animations showing Los Angeles being destroyed, things like that. And I think that it's designed to deter against that. If the technology makes progress, what we saw was, I think we'll see an analog to the Ronald Reagan initial missile intercept that led to THAAD and Aegis, which was, it was derided as impossible, unworkable, but when you shifted parties from George W. Bush to Bill Clinton, the technology was promising, it was reinforced, and it was fielded. And I think we will see that. And then finally, I should note once again, and your viewers can just look up space junk and the sources of it, that both China and Russia have conducted military tests of an anti-satellite weapon in space. So, you know, space has been militarized, or at least there have been issues of space being militarized by both of those countries, which is of concern to everybody.
David Arosh, Einar Tenjin, and Vladimir Sotnikov, thank you very much for joining us here on this episode of the Newsmakers. Unfortunately, we're run out of time. And thanks for watching. You can follow us on social media and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Ali Janayanash, and we'll see you next time.